Hey everyone, welcome to Co-Medicine. I'm your host, Dr. Sarah Boston, and we are stretching the definition of a healthcare professional today because I have a great guest on. Her name is Emily Tang. She is a stand-up comedian in Vancouver/Saskatoon, and she is a master's student at UBC in sexual health. Her thesis is Social Media Influences on Sexual Health Education for Immigrant Women. We get into this. We don't have all the answers, you guys, but Emily is working on it. She is going to solve social media, body image, all the problems social media causes for women. And I can't wait for her to get started with her career because we need help with this whole social media thing, you guys. She's also a really funny comedian. I know you guys are going to absolutely love her. So please enjoy my chat with master's student Emily Tang. Welcome to Co-Medicine, Emily Tang.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Dr. Sarah.
It's great. You could just call me Sarah. It's so sweet. I'm really excited, actually, because sometimes on Co-Medicine, I'm sure some of our listeners know, I stretch the boundaries of the definition of a healthcare professional and also of comedian so I can have more people on the show. So I kind of learned about you because you were visiting Ottawa. You're a master's student at UBC, and you can correct me, jump in anytime, correct me, but your master's thesis is Social Media Influences on Sexual Health Education for Immigrant Women. Yes. Okay, so I like to start with people's day jobs, and as a master's student, it's kind of your day job. So I want to hear all about this, because at first I thought it was just a master's in sexual health, but it's very specific. So how do you get into this? What was your undergrad? Like, what did you study in undergrad? And then let's talk about your thesis a bit too.
It was actually kind of a fluke because I did my undergrad in kinesiology at the University of Saskatchewan, and that's where I'm from. And as any kin major does, they kind of go through the life crisis almost in a way after, fourth year, because they're just okay, what's the path forward, right? And kinesiology is one of those stepping stone degrees. So there's many paths that people can take, for example, nursing, medicine, physio, occupational therapy, to name a few. And I was just okay, I like science and I like, helping people. So I was okay, maybe medicine. But it turns out that medicine, it didn't really fit my plans at that time because of some different things, because an external pressure. I didn't really like, blood, and I didn't really like night shifts. So I was okay, that's out. Okay. Probably can't be a doctor. And then so I was really worried about where my path was going to go. And my mom was and being the Asian mom that she is, you have to go to school. You should apply to UBC. And so I applied to UBC the day that the applications were due. And I remember coming home that night from an evening class, and I was panicking because I was writing a personal statement, and then there was a section that said, who's your potential supervisor? And I was freaking out because I was don't have one. So that morning I had reached out to a bunch of professors, and luckily one of them responded to me that night and was trying to set up a meeting with me. So then I was well, I haven't met him yet. He hasn't agreed to take me on, but I'm just going to put him down as a potential supervisor. And then put his name down. And then we met the following Friday after the applications were due, ended up having this spark. And he accepted me as a master's student. And the rest is kind of history.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very lucky. That's very lucky, because that could have gone a lot of different ways for you, I think. Not a good advisor, not someone you click with, no advisor.
The takeaway is don't do what I did.
Okay.
But it ended up working out for me. But I will say, because nobody in my family has gone to grad school, and they were all immigrant families, and they don't understand how the Canadian education system works. So it was definitely a struggle figuring all that out myself.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So your mom was you're going to school and you are going to figure out all of it, basically.
Yes.
Okay. And she's just as long as you're in school, I am good. So there was pressure. That's very I don't know, it's kind of a trope. We had another doctor who's Laotian. He's a very good friend of the podcast, Vien Fomachan, who's a ENT doctor in Florida. And he said, Asian families, you're going to go to med school. That's what you're doing. Was that part of your culture growing up?
It definitely was. And my mom was a single mom. And so she was yeah, no matter what you do, you just have to be better than your dad. right? So
Okay.
it's just like a really tough pressure to put on a child. But my dad got his master's from one of the most prestigious universities in China.
Okay.
So my mom really wanted me to go to a school that was like, you know, a top school
Okay.
in the world. And she also wanted me to just pursue like higher education. And I was just so lost because everybody in my class was doing, you know, med school applications or physio applications. And then there I was just like, I don't know. I actually took the MCAT as something that, you know, maybe like I had to do because it was something that everybody was doing. But I decided against it because I just figured out like that lifestyle is not really what I want, because I don't want to be doing so many years of school. And I also don't want to be like just exposed to like things like bodily fluids, for example.
No, I think that's good to realize early on. Like if blood and night shifts are not for you, then you should not become a doctor or a nurse or a veterinarian or a veterinary technician. I think those are all out. All those things are just off the table. So I think it's good you figured that out. I think there's some people who start into med school and even vet school, and then they kind of realize like, oh, this isn't for me. Now, luckily, a lot of the medical sciences you can kind of shift. I think there's some veterinarians who have found another path because they've realized things aren't for them. But it's a lot of work to realize, oh, I don't like this. So I think that's cool. So, okay, this very highly specific thesis of yours, where was the starting point with you? Because you've worked this out with your advisor, but where did you start from as far as like, and I know you're like writing a personal statement and writing, you know, oh, this will be my advisor, but like when you met with your advisor, where did you start as trying to figure out what are we going to study together?
Yeah, so I actually started the ideas around health, and because I wanted to integrate, so his expertise is in sociology and body image, and so I wanted to kind of integrate the health aspect with like the more artsy sociology stuff. And so that's kind of where our starting point was, which was like body image. And I wanted to kind of I originally wanted to research how social media might influence the body image of a young girl, for example, who's navigating the social media world. And there's a lot of pressures within the Asian culture as well related to femininity and how a woman should look in terms of body size and height and beauty standards and stuff. That was my original launching point. But as I kind of went on and thought about my research a little bit more, I decided maybe sexual health would be the better path, because body image and sexual health are all related, right? Like if you don't have a positive body image, it's really hard for you to have healthy sexual identity, right? So I decided to merge the two. And so now my research is in sexual health, and it was just really easy for me because since high school, I've always been advocating for sexual health and for policies and just for like free contraception and stuff like that. So it was just a very easy transition for me to come up with that idea. And again, you know, with the whole Asian culture and the taboo-ness of around sex and sexual health, I just really wanted to do the research that kind of closes the literature gap and that addresses the marginalization almost piece, and also the empowerment piece of what it means to be an Asian woman and what social media might mean for that as well. Because you know, we all, like, as young people, we use social media, and this podcast is a form of media as well. So it's just super duper interesting. And I decided to kind of do that.
So, okay, where are you in your master's right now? What stage of your master's are you in?
So I am in my second year right now, but I might have to take a third year just to finish everything. So right now I'm like in the very beginning of it almost, because I'm like trying to I'm done all my master's classes, the classes that I have to take to graduate.
Okay.
And then I'm just kind of writing my research proposal.
My next question is like, what have you learned so far? Like whether that's in your classes or just like whatever literature review you had to do to kind of get you to your research question or your methodology, like what have you learned when you're kind of digging into this topic?
So it's actually really interesting because right now around the literature, so we know that, like, for example, there's like Reddit. It's like one of the social media platforms that are most often used by LGBTQIA plus youth.
Reddit?
Just because...
Sorry, I'm like shocked. That's shocking. Really? Okay, sorry, keep going.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah, because it is anonymous in nature. And a lot of people do share like personal experiences on there. For example, trans youth might use that platform to really engage with another youth who might have gone through the same thing. So it's like a really cool way to share personal experiences related to, gender affirming care and stuff like that as well.
I think of Reddit as almost like a bro. I must be wrong. I don't research this. But if you just said Reddit, I would never think about trans youth. I just would never think of that. I would think of like bros in their basement. I don't know why. I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're just wrong. Okay.
That's an interesting thought. When I think of Reddit, it's always just an advice column, and you can get it on like just so many different things.
Okay.
And so it's kind of interesting that Reddit is one of the platforms that have been coming up. And yeah, on top of that, there's just other platforms as well. For example, Instagram. That's a pretty popular one as well. And it's one that a lot of people talk about because Instagram is so like photo based. So there's also a lot of external pressures related to, conforming to the ideal of what, for example, what beauty is or what health looks like. If you ever like search up #health on Instagram, you will probably see a very specific image of what that looks like.
Okay.
And that oftentimes is probably, a heteronormative like person. Exactly.
Okay. And then what does that do to I'm guessing it's not good.
Yeah.
What does that do to our mental health? What does that do to our sexual health, I guess? Like, what is that, especially in the context of young women?
Yeah. It's like, it just leads to a lot of pressures to maybe look a certain way and to kind of follow that norm. And it's also really interesting because with politics nowadays, there's also a shift more towards, like right-winged politicians and the Republican Party as well, with just like the whole like anti-woke quote unquote movement.
So, and
yeah, it's
you feel like social media has influenced that? Like you feel like that's the anti-woke movement that's been able to kind of get into social, is that what you're saying? Like,
It's definitely a tool.
Okay.
Just because, yeah, it's definitely a method of dissemination.
Okay.
Information dissemination, just because young people are so exposed to it and the algorithms are kind of pushing this ideal that you have to be in a heterosexual relationship, that you have to be, fit. And also this like whole neoliberal movement where, you're in charge of your own health and that it's not really the systems at play. It's just kind of like almost like finger blaming and like pointing at you, and you're like, oh, like you're just lazy and that's why you look like that, and yeah.
Is there anything positive you think about social media? Like, is there like, because I don't know, I struggle with that myself. Like sometimes I think, oh, this is awful, I should get off of it, like I hate this. But then there's moments where I'm like, is there a good way it can connect us, or am I just connecting with people in my own bubble and then I like that because I don't have to talk to people outside my bubble. Like, do you see a way forward, Emily? Like, would your research be able to point us into a way forward to how to use social media because there's some things I think that can be good, or do you think it's just all bad? Where do we go from here, Emily? Tell us, guide us.
We know that social media has just been a place for building community as well.
Yeah.
Right. So it's how people stay engaged. And so that in itself could be, strong and powerful because, for example, with Reddit, you might get trolls, but who are like, what the heck, but then you might also make new friends who share the same experiences as you. And I also personally know peers who are in like serious relationships from people like that they've just met on social media.
Right.
So like across the world, so things like that do happen. And social media with awareness and the right regulation, I think it could be a really powerful tool to provide the right empowerment for sexual health and for health in general.
Okay. Now, I think it was Florida. You'll have to correct me if I'm wrong. I'm always sort of thrown when I agree with a politician that I generally don't agree with. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think DeSantis was going to outlaw social media for kids under 14. There was something that just came out recently in Florida.
Yeah.
So what do you think of that? I think that's something that people are talking about in other states and other provinces. Is that a good idea? Should we keep kids of a certain age, 14, off social media? Should we keep people off until they're 16? Or is it just going to rot people's brains at 16 now and they don't know how to use it? Is it just going to make it worse? I would really love to know what you think about that. Is that a way to protect kids from social media?
I feel like maybe if we were to, deny minors of those spaces, I'm cautious that it might lead to some dangerous drawbacks.
Okay.
Which is, for example, if we are restricting social media use and then we're also not teaching, for example, like transgender care in school, or if we're not talking about, healthy identity and sexuality and stuff like that, then we might run the risk of the youth kind of and a young child not knowing where to go for that kind of information.
Okay.
Like, just because I grew up in a very conservative household myself, and I know that, and I was really lucky in a way, almost, because not lucky, but like I was, I'm more lucky than another person who maybe grew up in a very, very religious household, for example. And so, or where there's like a household where there might be risk to abuse or to any, like, to just like either emotional abuse or physical abuse or sexual abuse and stuff like that. So I fear for these youth, right? Because they might not have social media to explore their identities. However, by limiting social media, though, we are restricting youth from seeing, for example, some of the more detrimental stuff like AI or like this perfect image of what they have to be. So I don't know, maybe there is a better solution that we can do, which is, like making a special form of social media that is more regulated, like regulated like platforms that, maybe restrict like some of the, like, for example, some of the more harmful stuff like pornography or AI or stuff like that.
Okay.
Maybe like more regulation around social media instead of completely banning it.
Emily, I just thought of your PhD. You can let your mom know, because you're going to stay in school and do a PhD on this. Because
the plan is actually not to do a PhD for me. Yeah.
I'm very disappointed, Emily. Can I call your mom? No, I'm just kidding. Well, someone needs to, because I do think like it is, there was a couple little social media platforms that came out. This is just going to be positive. Yeah, it didn't work. And then there was one, I can't remember what it was called, but people were supposed to just post pictures of themselves, like not looking good. No filter, no makeup,
Be Real?
Yeah. What happened to that, Emily? Like, no one's like, we don't want to be real.
No, Be Real is still very curated images of themselves. Like, I knew people who used it, and then so the thing is the timer was set off randomly, right? And then you have to take a Be Real. But you can also be late. And so I know people who purposely postpone it because they're like, right now I'm in my PJs and I don't look good, no makeup, nothing. Yeah. But later on, I'm going to go to this concert, so that's where I'm going to take the Be Real. So
not so real.
The right idea is there, but it's still a very curated identity.
I love that. I just saw, I like her, so I don't want anyone to think I don't like Alyssa Milano, because I think she's wonderful. But she just posted a picture of herself on Instagram. I just saw it, and she was kind of like in bed. She's like, no makeup, no filter. I'm like, yeah, but filler and Botox, like, I don't know. Like, she was trying to present this like, this is just me, and then I'm like, but you could obviously have Botox and filler happening. So like, I'm not sure that is quite like the message is there, but I don't think the medium is really proving the message. So anyway, I found that amusing. It was kind of the same thing as Be Real. Okay. Well, I don't know what the answer is, because I don't even know if I have a handle on social media. I had to put a blocker on my social media. So I'm limited to 30 minutes a day, which I don't always restrict myself appropriately, but I was like, I'm on it too much, and I sometimes don't feel that good after I've been on it for just doom scrolling through it. So yeah. So I want to ask you a little bit more, like you said, growing up in a Chinese immigrant household and sexual health was kind of taboo. Do you mean by that, like, you weren't taught about it, or it just wasn't something you were allowed to talk about, or what was your own, I know you're researching this, but just speaking from your own experience of kind of growing up in that culture?
Yeah, it's different for different parents, but I will say, speaking from my own experience, I was never allowed to, date. Like, when I was younger, my mom avoided issues around relationships and stuff like that in general. And if she were to like when I got my period, and I remember this vividly, I told her, that I was, on my period and stuff. And then she said to me, like, don't use tampons. Because she believed in the tampon, like, just like the whole act of putting it in, it would basically be like losing your virginity or whatever. So
Okay.
yeah, that's kind of like the belief that I kind of was exposed to.
I just want to give a quick shout out to our season 5 sponsor, ScribeNote. ScribeNote is the first AI scribe in veterinary medicine, and it's amazing. If you are not using an AI scribe, you guys, you got to get on it. Check out ScribeNote. ScribeNote was founded in March 2023. It's a pretty amazing story. Katie is a veterinarian. Her brother Ryan, who's an engineer, was following her around at work, and he recognized, hey, you vets, you're so inefficient. You're doing everything twice, sometimes 3 times. Let me help you with that. I've used ScribeNote in the exam room. I'll just bring it into the room as an app on my phone, and I just let the clients know, and then I can talk to it and basically tell ScribeNote what I'm finding during my physical exam. It records it, it summarizes it, it's all there. If I have to hop to another appointment right away, it doesn't matter. I don't have to worry about remembering it all. ScribeNote's got me covered. It's also been fantastic for me for when I'm calling a client and I need to record that conversation, because we got to record everything now. If I have a 20-minute conversation, after that, I have another 20 minutes of typing. But now, no more, because of ScribeNote. So thanks, ScribeNote. Everybody check it out. I promise it'll make your life better. They have already helped with 2 million notes to date. That's millions and millions and millions of minutes that we get back. Thanks, ScribeNote. So, okay, I want to get into the comedy, but before I do that, because you came to Ottawa and you were doing, I didn't get to meet you, but you came here because you were lobbying the government for something, and I'm dying to know, what was that about? What were you doing here?
Yeah, so that ties back to my role with VP External that I do. So the Vice President External Relations of Graduate Student Society at UBC. So that's like a grad student council, and we kind of represent the 11,000 graduate students that we have at UBC. And so my role within all that is to lobby the government and to really push for, policy changes related to post-secondary education. So I was with this organization called CASA, and they are basically a big lobby group that, has student membership from all over Canada. And so we basically have a whole week, which is called Lobby Week, and we go to the parliament and we meet with MPs and senators, as well as, and the board of directors actually had a meeting with Trudeau as well. So it was just and then we had these 6 asks that are related to Canadian post-secondary education. And it was basically pushing for, more funding related to education. So yeah, so it was really cool and it was really interesting. So I'm really glad that I was a part of that.
Did you meet Trudeau?
I didn't, unfortunately.
All right.
I know.
That's okay.
But
sounds like he's not going to be, actually, by the time this airs, he's probably not even going to be our prime minister.
Exactly. I know. But I did meet Minister Mark Miller, who is the Minister of Immigration and Refugee and Citizenship. Cool. So that was super cool. But yeah, it was I don't know, people say never meet your heroes. Yeah. So I don't agree with some of Trudeau's policies personally. But I will say it would have been a cool opportunity to sit down with him, but I'm not on the board of directors, unfortunately. So I wasn't able to do that. Yeah.
No, I don't. I mean, it's weird. People are weird about Trudeau now. I'd love to meet him. I don't care what anyone says. I don't care. And I don't like when people are disrespectful to our prime minister. There, I said it, Emily.
Yeah.
I don't like I don't like the fuck Trudeau flags. I don't care if you don't like him. Just don't vote for him then. That's what I say.
Exactly.
He has kids.
Exactly.
He has kids. And they have to look at that. I don't like it. Anyway, that's...
No, he was at the Taylor Ayres concert with his daughter.
Oh,
and then everybody was hating on him because he was they were government resources for the concert or whatever, right? Kind of like that. But I was like, he's just being a dad. Yeah. Let him move.
I know. People are very hard on people are very hard on our politicians, and he's just taking his daughter he's not allowed to do that.
Yeah.
And he actually, I think he was partly responsible for how many Taylor Swift concerts there were, because he was talking to Taylor on social media saying, hey, don't forget about Canada. So he can go. People, calm down, everybody. Just let someone go. Anyway.
Which boosted our economy.
A lot.
Significantly. Exactly.
I think people will always find, my parents are from Saskatchewan, and so, your parents probably have a different experience, but my parents were around for Pierre Trudeau. They're first generation Trudeau haters. Terrible. I can't even talk to them about it. We just don't talk about it. Like, let's not talk about politics. So you're a pretty political person, I think. Like, you're active, I would say. And you just said you're not going to do a PhD. And I don't want to put pressure on you because I think you have a pressure life. But like, what do you see yourself doing with your master's and your education? Like, where do you want to kind of go with it?
Yeah, that's the golden question. For me, I actually think that because of UBC, which was a random fluke, it introduced me to a lot of things like comedy and lobbying. So I know I used to be a person that hated politics. I was like, I have nothing to do with this. I'm not even a Canadian citizen. But now I am. And now I'm a Canadian citizen. Yeah. I used to not be.
Okay.
And then I was like, I hate politics, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't affect me. But now I'm actually like not opposed to it. So I think ideally what I would really like to do after my master's is to potentially seek for a government job that deals with, or working with a nonprofit, but anything that I can do that kind of deals with policies around sexual health, which would be like my ideal job.
Okay, cool. Well, I think you got a plan.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see what you do.
We'll
okay,
see.
Time to pivot. We're pivoting over to comedy. I took longer, but it was so interesting talking about all that stuff. So you're a master's student, but you're also doing stand-up comedy. So I want to know what your mom thinks of that. I want to know, how did you get into it? Why did you start doing stand-up comedy and how did you get into it?
Yeah, my mom knows that I do comedy, but she has never seen any of my bits.
Okay.
And I wanted to remain that way.
Fair.
You know, maybe one day I'll write a completely clean set and then she'll come and see me. But right now I'm just like, nope, you're not going to come and see it. But I got into it basically because I went to UBC and I was kind of struggling navigating the city a little bit, and I was honestly feeling a little depressed when I first moved to Vancouver, just because I grew up in a very small city. I'm in Saskatoon, and then moving to Vancouver, it was a lot to navigate. Comedy was one of those things that I was always obsessed with. I've always seen a lot of stand-up comedians when I was younger, and so all of a sudden I found out that there was a UBC comedy club.
Okay.
And that's when I decided to go to one of their open mics. I randomly, after one of the student council meetings, I went to their open mic right away. And then I somehow spontaneously ended up being on stage. I didn't even have any jokes prepared. Yeah, I didn't even have any jokes prepared.
This is absurd.
Anything like that.
Yeah.
Nothing. It was just, I literally only had, I didn't have any jokes prepared, but I only had one notes thing on my app. And then in there was just some random ideas that I had. But no punchlines, just a bunch of funny premises. And then it just kind of worked out. And then people were laughing. And people from the UBC Comedy Club was saying, you should come back. And so I did. And then it just kind of went from there. And then I started writing material and
So I mean, what a gift to have a club like that. I think I wish that, I don't know if I would have found it because I was a vet student and I was busy, but I wish they would have had something like that when I was in university. That sounds amazing. So was it a focus, the club, on stand-up, or was it improv or sketch, or was it what did they do in that club?
Yeah, so the club, UBC Comedy Club specifically, does stand-up comedy.
Okay.
And then we also have a UBC Improv Club that does improv. Yeah. So, right now our focus is in stand-up comedy, but eventually we might branch out and we do collaborations with other clubs. Maybe it could branch out to other things like sketch comedy or comedy from other countries, or comedy in different languages and different styles.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
So this club meets regularly. You guys write together, or do you just do performances together, or what do you do with the club?
A little bit of both. I mean, we don't really write together. At least that hasn't been the trend that I've seen. But what we do is we kind of put on these events. So some of them are related to, teaching people how to write comedy. So we have guest speakers or guest comedians from the city who come in. And then we also do, just performances and open mics. So that's kind of what we do right now.
That's really cool. Super cool. Well, I'm glad you found it. It sounds like you are loving it. This is a good time. We'll jump to your clip.
Master's student at UBC. Yeah, thank you. I do sex research. Yeah, but my Asian mom to this day, she still doesn't know what I study. Because according to her, I'm just getting my master's to become a sex worker. And if you ask her, how's Emily doing, she'll probably tell you that I am dead. Yeah, I grew up in a very traditional Chinese household, so that means that I've never been loved. And I've never been validated. So I've been trying therapy recently. By therapy, I mean I've just been dating a lot of white guys. You're Asian, don't be that excited. I'm probably not gonna fuck tonight. White guys are good therapists. I'm just saying that white guys will have white moms, and it feels so good to have a mom tell you that they're proud of you.
That was great. Thank you so much for sharing that. It was perfect. So where was that filmed?
So that was actually at a local comedy club
Amazing.
in Vancouver.
Amazing.
It's called Chill-X Comedy.
Okay.
Chill pill comedy is what they do, what they say. It's a really cool opportunity that I actually had, and it was on this show that was literally called That's Nasty.
Okay.
So it's this nasty sex themed show, and it was super duper cool because the club in general, like, they're run by women and they're a local business. So it's incredibly cool that I even got that opportunity. But that was filmed, I think, like 2 months into me doing comedy officially.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was like, and the audience was like over 100. So it was kind
Fantastic.
of cool. It was insane.
That is fantastic. Yeah. Okay. And now your first time you said you just had some notes and you just got up there, but like, since you've been doing it more, what's kind of your process for creating jokes and creating material?
I think what I do is just I observe everything that's kind of going on around me. Either it's through, like boys that I date, like relationships, or just like little things that I find funny because of the cultural differences between, China and America, North America. And so I wanted to, definitely incorporate those things. So my writing process is like every single time I see something funny, write it down. I'll have like all my notes like in my note app. That's what it's for. And then when I get a chance, I'll kind of sit down with my notebook and I'll just freestyle different things. And I'm not the kind of person that writes out a whole joke.
Okay.
That kind of comes as I go up and perform. And then I sometimes will like come up with like how I should frame it, but I definitely do have the punchlines in mind.
Okay.
When I do that.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. I'm like the opposite of that. I have everything written down.
Oh,
everyone's different,
yeah.
but I don't know. Yeah. I like to but maybe I'd be less stressed if I had always just gone up there and been like, okay, I'm going to do these kind of jokes, but I'm too far down my nerdy little process to change now.
Yeah. No, everyone, it's funny because everybody does something different and it works. It just, but for me, I don't know. I just write down like the premise and then the punchline, but how I get to the punchline might be different every time. So what I do is it might be different. Okay. So, I mean, if I was working on a joke.
Okay, because you're consciously
if I was working on a new
I'm going to
joke.
try a slightly different way of getting here.
No. But like every time if I was working on a joke, then I would, every time it comes out, it would be a little different. Okay. And then sometimes like I find that, and then I record myself, and sometimes I find that this word is funny. Okay. So I have to keep that word.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Perfect. I love that. Yeah. I think it's funny what you said about your mom, because my mom, I was not living close to my mom, and I was sort of like, she'd be like, oh, is there a tape? I'd be like, there's no tape. Like, there's always a tape. But I'm like, no, I don't have any tape. So I was just avoiding her. She's so supportive. I don't know why. I was just avoiding her. I don't know. It's weird when it's someone so close to you. I think that's the weird part, because you're kind of talking about things that are a bit intimate, and then it's your mom there. But she came for the first time since I moved to Ottawa. And she's coming actually in like 2 days. She's coming, but it's always a bit like, oh, like, what's this going to be like? But she has a great sense of humor. So, and she's wildly supportive. So I just tell myself it'll be okay. But it is different having your mom in the audience, I will say. She's probably listening to this podcast right now, and she's going to comment after and say, why do you feel like that? I'm like, I don't know. It's just because you're my mom. Emily feels the same way, Mom. Anyway, it's funny having a parent. I think it's different. So what is comedy for you? Like, do you think is it a hobby? Is it a vocation? Is it something you see yourself doing for a long time? Is it like, hey, it's just whatever it is, like, I don't really care? Or do you have goals as far as your comedy goes?
Yeah. For me, because I'm relatively new to it, it's only been like a year in-ish almost. I would like to take it as far as it can go and see what happens. But for me right now, it's just a really fun outlet for me.
Great.
Like, it's a creative outlet. to, the heartbreaking research that I do. And I do, I just definitely want to be able to just inspire Asian women or just like people in general who, might share the same background as me, and just to inspire them, and to maybe, like let them know that comedy is a great creative way to let the world know how you feel. And I also just kind of want to destigmatize those conversations around sexual health a little bit.
Okay.
So we'll see what opportunities arise with comedy, and I will definitely keep writing, and I'll definitely keep sharing these experiences. And it's always amazing because every time I'm performing in Vancouver, there's always one Asian woman who's with a white guy, and it will just be kind of funny because the Asian woman will always come up to me after. They'll be like, that was so funny, or I relate to that on a personal level. So it's those kind of comments that make me want to keep writing more and keep putting my thoughts and ideas out there. So I just want to spread the joy a little bit.
No, I love that, because I mean, it's changing, but like for a long time there wasn't a lot of women in comedy, and not a lot of Asian women in comedy, but it's coming. It's still not, I don't know what it's like at UBC, in the UBC Comedy Club, but like, just when you go to comedy clubs, it's coming, but there's definitely still a lot more just like straight white men doing comedy. And it's sometimes hard to break into that space, and I find the audience is often, because that's who's performing, so then that's the audience kind of mirrors that. And so I think it's great to have more women, Asian women, representing, because there might be an Asian woman in the audience who's like, I want to do that, and I think seeing you do that, then it's kind of like, whoever wants to do it, it's for everybody. So I love that. Okay, you're probably too early on to everything, both your career and comedy, to answer this question, but if you could give up working, like a vocation, whatever that's going to be, and just do comedy full time, but you'd make the same amount of money. I know you're like a student, so you're like, I don't make a lot of money right now, but you would just be the same. Like, it wouldn't really change anything financially for you. You'd be a successful comedian or successful in your career working for government and advocating for sexual health. Would you just give it up and just do comedy, or would you want to try to keep doing both?
It's a difficult question. I think I'd like the balance of both, just because I like with all the policy stuff, I really like it. And then I also really like making people laugh. So I kind of enjoy doing this little dual life of, by day I'm like, researching and talking to people, or, advocating. And then by night I'm like at a comedy club doing my dirtiest bits. So I don't know, I do like that balance. And I have thought about being a professional comedian, but it's just the thought of, maybe just like all the traveling and all the scheduling and all the, I don't know, I feel like it would be really, really, really fun and interesting. But I feel like ultimately I do want to be able to settle down a little bit and to not have to, tailor my life around comedy and working at night. So we'll see. Like, I'm definitely open to the idea. Like, if an opportunity comes that's like, oh, Emily, you should, sign on to this club or whatever and perform all the time or travel. Like, if opportunities like that come, then yes, I would 100% try to pursue it. But right now, I'm just really enjoying it, and I'll see where life takes me.
I like how you prioritize sleep in your life decisions. You're like, night shift, no. And then you're like, comedy. And you're so young, because I love it, because like comedy that happens really late at night. Like, if someone asked me to do a show at like 10:30, I'm always like, okay. Like, I I want to, but do I, So I like that even at your tender age of almost 24, you're like, these late nights, I'm not sure. Whether I'm making people laugh or saving a life, I'm not really sure about it. So I'll have to think. I'll get back.
It goes down to the night shift.
Yeah, it all comes down. I don't know. Maybe you're onto something, though. I don't know. I could see you working for like a social media company and trying to like smarten them up, Emily. That's what I could see you doing. I think that would be amazing.
Yeah,
there,
I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see. I'm being motherly. I can't help myself. Okay. I have loved meeting you. I've loved talking to you. I really appreciate you. I appreciate everything you're doing. Thank you for being on the podcast. I have one more question. And I don't know if you know this. I don't know if you read ahead. It's the same question. It's the last question we ask every guest on Co-Medicine. because our ultimate guest is Dr. Ken Jeong. And so I'm asking you to invite him to be a guest on Co-Medicine. It would be amazing if we could get him on. So go for it. Give him your best pitch.
Hi, Dr. Kim Jung. I think you should be on this podcast. You know, like Sarah's so amazing. She's so funny. And if you don't, you might get a bunch of hate messages from all the past guests that have been on this podcast, who's like going to troll you and troll your comment section. So
wow, look
definitely
at, she's
watch
an
out.
expert in social media. She knows how to motivate people. She's like, oh, you're going to get trolled on social.
Yeah.
You kind of turned it around. That was kind of dark, actually, Emily, but I liked it. I liked it a lot. I'll let you know how it works out. It's been great meeting you. Thank you so much for your time. And thanks so much for being a guest on Co-Medicine.
Thank you so much.
And that wraps up another episode of Co-Medicine. Thank you so much for listening. It is great having you here. If you have been listening to Co-Medicine from the beginning, thank you. If you're new to Co-Medicine, thank you and welcome to our Co-Medicine community. It is wonderful to have you here. I want to just give a shout out to Mark Edwards, who wrote the music for Co-Medicine. He's a comedian, an actor, a musician. He's going to be famous, you guys. And then you'll be like, is that the same Mark Edwards? And I'll be like, yeah. He's my friend, you guys. I know him. And he wrote the song. He's amazing. Also, big shout out to Dustin Bays. Thank you for editing the show and producing it. I appreciate you because I don't know how to do that stuff and I don't want to learn. Yes, it's willful ignorance, I think, at this point, but I'm so glad Dustin is here with me, helping me out with the show. And thank you for being here. If you enjoyed this episode, please like it, share it, do all the things, review it. If you're a sponsor or a potential sponsor, call me. That would be great. If you don't like the show, I don't know why you're still here.